There's a number that changes everything. Not $1 million. Not some dream retirement account you'll never touch. $100,000. Cash, sitting in an account you actually own. Here's what most people get wrong about that number. They think it's a wealth milestone. It's not. It's a fear milestone. There's a specific moment when you check your bank account and you don't immediately feel your stomach drop. You don't start doing mental math about which bill can wait. You just look at it, and you're fine. That moment doesn't happen at $1 million for most people. It happens right around 100,000. And if you've never been there, you have no idea how different that feeling is from where you are right now. $100,000 won't make you rich. It will make you calm. And calm is something money can actually buy, because calm is what lets you think past next Tuesday. This is a 6-step roadmap to getting there. Not theory, not inspiration. The actual sequence in order, starting with the step nobody wants to do first. Step 1. And this is the step that separates people who actually hit 100K from people who talk about hitting 100K for the next 4 years. You have to stop spending money you haven't saved yet. Meet Tyler. 27 years old, works in sales in Dallas, makes $58,000 a year. Tyler got a raise last year, $800 more per month. Tyler was very excited about this. Tyler used that raise to get a nicer apartment, $400 extra a month. Tyler also decided his old car was embarrassing, so now he has a car payment, $600 a month. Tyler joined a gym because new year, new him, $80 a month. Tyler is now spending $280 more per month than he earns. Tyler doesn't know this yet because Tyler has never actually sat down and done the math. Tyler isn't irresponsible. Tyler just did what everyone around him does when income goes up. He upgraded, and the entire consumer economy is specifically designed to make sure that upgrade happens automatically, immediately, and slightly faster than the raise actually justifies. This is called lifestyle inflation. It has no cure. It only has awareness. So here's what step 1 actually looks like. You decide in advance that a raise is not a spending event. A new job is not a spending event. A bonus is absolutely not a spending event. Your living costs right now are the baseline. They stay the baseline until you hit the number. That means if you're splitting rent with a roommate, you keep splitting rent. If your car is paid off and ugly, beautiful. If your current phone works, it works. The goal is to create a gap between what you earn and what you spend. That gap is the raw material for everything else in this video. Without it, the next 5 steps are completely useless. I did this, kept my expenses frozen for over a year while my income went up. It was not glamorous. My friends were upgrading apartments. I was deciding between 2 versions of store brand pasta. That's not a metaphor. That was a real Tuesday night. But here's what that year bought me. Options. And options are the only thing money actually gives you that matters. Step 2 has nothing to do with money, which is exactly why most people skip it. Everyone blames their job for why they can't get ahead. The 9 to 5 is killing my dreams. I don't have time. I'm too exhausted after work. Here's the problem with that story. It's not wrong exactly. It's just incomplete. Back to Tyler. Tyler gets off work at 6 p.m. Tyler goes to bed around 10:30. That's 4.5 hours. Every single weekday. Tyler will tell you he has no time. 6 to 7, Tyler makes dinner and scrolls his phone while the pasta boils. 7 to 9:30, Tyler watches something on Netflix, just 1 episode, which somehow becomes 4. 9:30 to 10:30, Tyler scrolls again, this time horizontal, which means he's basically asleep, but his phone doesn't know that. Time spent on anything that moves him forward, 0. Tyler has no time because Tyler has not decided to have time. Those are different problems with very different solutions. Your after-work hours are the only hours nobody else has a claim on. Your employer owns 8 hours. Commuting owns 1 or 2. Sleep owns 7 or 8. But the hours between when work ends and when you go to bed, those belong entirely to you. The question is whether you're spending them or investing them. There are 2 modes your brain operates in. Building mode, where you're creating something, learning something, making something that didn't exist before, and reaction mode, where you're just responding to whatever is in front of you. You cannot do both at the same time. Every notification, every quick check, every just 1-minute interruption pulls you out of building mode. And getting back into building mode after an interruption takes about 20 minutes. So if you're getting interrupted every 15 minutes, you are mathematically never in building mode. You are just doing reaction mode with better intentions. Block your building hours. Treat them like a meeting you cannot reschedule. 4.5 hours a night, 5 nights a week is 22.5 hours. That's more than half a full-time job. The question is, what job you're working during those hours? Step 3 is where most people stall out for 6 months because they can't answer one question. Step 3. Pick a skill people are already paying for. Not a skill you think might be valuable someday. Not a skill that sounds interesting in theory. A skill that someone right now, this week, is writing a check for. That distinction matters more than anything else in this step. Here's the simplest way to find it. Open your bank statement. Look at what you personally spent money on in the last 3 months. Every subscription, every service, everything you paid someone else to do because you didn't want to do it yourself. That list is a map of what people value enough to actually pay for. Somewhere on that map is a skill you could learn. On the business side, it looks like this. Every company that exists needs customers. Getting customers requires content, outreach, advertising, and follow-up. Each one of those is a learnable skill. Each one of those is something businesses are actively hiring for or contracting out right now. You don't need to invent a new market. You need to find an existing one and show up with something useful. Here's what people are paying for today. Someone to write emails that actually get opened. Someone to run ads without burning the budget in a week. Someone to edit video so the business owner doesn't have to learn a new software at 43. Someone to handle the 5 things the owner keeps pushing to next week. That last one is the real job description for most freelance work. Not a glamorous technical skill, just being the person who actually does the thing. Pick one. One skill, one type of client, one way of reaching them. That's the whole strategy. The people who try to learn 3 things at once to keep their options open are the same people explaining their updated strategy to you 2 years later from the exact same financial position. You don't need the skill of the future. You need the skill someone is paying for this Friday. Once you know what that skill is, step 4 is where most people accidentally waste the next year thinking they're making progress. Step 4. Most people who say they're learning aren't learning. They're consuming. And those are not the same thing. Here's what learning actually means. Same situation, different behavior. That's it. If you watch a video about cold outreach and then go back to doing exactly what you were doing before, you did not learn cold outreach. You watched someone else understand it. You borrowed their clarity for 40 minutes and returned it when the video ended. Real learning shows up in what you do next, not in what you now know. I watched enough videos about managing money to teach a college course. My bank account at the time was not impressed. I had consumed approximately 400 hours of financial content and saved approximately nothing, because watching someone explain a concept is not the same as doing the thing. I knew everything. I had done nothing. Those are opposites that can feel identical from the inside, which is what makes this so easy to miss for so long. The fastest way to actually learn a skill is volume plus feedback, not volume alone. You need to do the thing enough times that the real world starts telling you what's working. Post 10 pieces of content and nothing happens. That is feedback. Uncomfortable feedback, but specific and true. Send 20 cold emails and get no replies. Also, feedback. The real world is an extraordinarily honest teacher if you show up often enough to hear what it's saying. If you can pay someone who's already good to look at your work and tell you specifically what's wrong, do it. Even if it costs money. Especially if it costs money, because having skin in the game changes how carefully you listen. The goal is to compress the feedback loop, not extend it by another 6 months of watching other people do the thing you want to do. The question is not whether you're working hard. The question is whether anything is changing because of it. Step 5 is where that answer starts costing real money, and where a lot of people make the wrong call. Step 5. Spend money in the right places. This sounds like it contradicts step 1. It doesn't. Step 1 was about cutting the spending that keeps you stuck. Step 5 is about the spending that gets you unstuck. There's a difference, and knowing the difference is worth more than any specific dollar amount. 3 categories worth spending on. Tools that remove friction from work you're already doing. People who can teach you faster than you can teach yourself. And attempts, meaning the actual cost of trying the thing. Running the first ad, buying the software, sending the first proposal. These have a measurable return. Everything else is lifestyle dressed up as investment. Here's the math. 2 people learning the same skill. Person A spends nothing, learns entirely from free resources, figures it out alone. 18 months later, they have a skill they can sell. Person B spends $500 on 3 sessions with someone already doing it well. 6 months later, same skill, same result. Person A saved $500. Person A also lost 12 months of potential income. If that skill generates even $500 a month, Person A's decision to save $500 cost them $6,000. The math does not support the frugality here. Cheap is not always cheap. Sometimes cheap is just expensive on a longer timeline. The rule is simple. Spend on things that compress your timeline to the number. Don't spend on things that reward you for having arrived before you've arrived. A nicer apartment does not make you learn faster. The right course or the right mentor might. Know which is which before you open your wallet. Step 6 is the last one, and it's the step where people who did everything right for a year and a half quietly hand back most of what they built. Step 6. And this one is about Tyler again. Tyler made it to month 14. His side income from freelance work has hit $3,000 a month. He's tired, he's proud, and honestly, he deserves to be. 14 months of frozen expenses, blocked evenings, and store-brand everything. So Tyler buys AirPods. Nice ones. Then Tyler starts looking at apartments because the current one feels small now that he's someone who makes $3,000 a month on the side. Tyler thinks he's earned this. Tyler's not wrong that he worked hard. Tyler is wrong about what the work was for. The version of Tyler at month 22 looks back at month 14 and has one thing to say. It is not that the AirPods were a bad product. Here's the actual goal. $100,000 in the account. Not $100,000 in revenue. Not $100,000 that came in and went back out through a nicer lifestyle. In the account, sitting there, the gap between those two numbers is almost always lifestyle inflation, and it almost always shows up the moment things start working, which is exactly the worst time to let your guard down. Every dollar you pull out of the gap to reward yourself is a dollar that pushes the number further away. The math on this is brutal and simple. If you're saving $1,500 a month and you upgrade your life by $800 a month because you feel like you've earned it, you just cut your savings rate in half. You didn't treat yourself. You added 14 months to your timeline. Keep the baseline. Hit the number first. Everything else can wait, and when you actually have $100,000 sitting in an account, you'll understand why waiting was the right call. Remember the feeling from the beginning of this video. Checking your account and not feeling your stomach drop. Not doing mental math about which bill can slide. Just looking at the number and being fine. That feeling is not reserved for people who got lucky or started early or had help. It is available to anyone who runs the sequence in order and doesn't quit before the number shows up. Cut the spending. Reclaim the hours. Pick one skill the market is already paying for. Do the thing until the real world starts responding. Spend on what compresses your timeline, not on what celebrates progress you haven't finished making. And when things start working, leave the baseline alone until you cross the finish line. 6 steps, 1 number. The day you hit it, you'll make a decision about something, a job, an opportunity, a risk worth taking, and for the first time, that decision won't be made out of fear. That's what $100,000 actually buys you. Start today.